This video is part of a series where I'm taking excerpts from a conversation I had with Timothy Sandefur on the right to earn a living. You can check out the previous videos by going into the description. The links will be there. Let's get to the conversation. So the next question, right? I mean, it's incredibly important. The founders found it incredibly important as a fundamental right. What does the United States do well to protect this right? Or maybe you'll say they don't do anything well. What does the US do regarding the right to earn a living and protecting it?
Well, one can always come up with things to complain about. So let me start with things to be proud of. And that is that if you look in historical terms, consider it in terms of world history, the United States protects the right to earn a living better than almost any civilization that has ever existed. And we enjoy the fruits of those social and legal institutions at this very moment with the technology we're using to record this, for example. So the massive industrial and commercial expansion and the improvement in the standard of living, what has some scholars have called the Great Escape, of escaping from the poverty that was such a huge part of ordinary life for most people throughout world history. That's largely due to these institutions. I would actually say, however, that it's not the legal institutions that are the best part of America's protection of this right. The best answer to your question is cultural. The best answer to your question is that what America does best when it comes to protecting the right to earn a living is that it has a strong culture of admiring and appreciating wealth creators, innovators, entrepreneurs, inventors, investors, people who either get rich quick or who carefully muster their resources and provide for themselves and their families. For July 4th, which was just a few weeks ago, I decided, we went on vacation, and I decided my light reading on vacation would be to reread Democracy in America. And Tocqueville has a chapter called Why All Honest Professions Are Honorable in the United States. And he's explained to his French reading audience how remarkable it is that in America, all honest professions are considered honorable, which is not something that was true in the Europe of that day. In the Europe of that day, there were many professions or businesses or trades that were considered dishonorable or disreputable. And what Tocqueville says is that anything other than, prostitution or stealing, basically, is considered an honorable profession in the United States. And this is really remarkable. Well, that, I would say, is the best thing that America does. America's respect and admiration for entrepreneurs and creators and the wealth creators and builders. That's what we do best. Just recently, a movie came out called Air, which is about the development of the Nike Air shoe. And I just loved that movie. I was so excited. This is a perfect specimen of what I'm talking about. Here's a movie where the plot is about the development of a commercial product and the negotiations over forming the contract for that product. Now, just pause for a second to recognize how unusual that is. What other civilization before ours has a literature that centers around the formation of commercial contracts? You don't find that in ancient Greek drama. You don't find that in the medieval morality plays. But all of a sudden, we have a culture where entrepreneurialism is considered so honorable that they write stories about it. And then, of course, there's this marvelous scene in the movie, sorry for those who haven't seen it, where the one character says, I'm going to demand the most amount of money from you that I possibly can. And the reason why is because when somebody comes along who's got it, they deserve it. And what a marvelous line in this movie. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that attitude is the most precious way that America protects this right.
What I love about that attitude is there's research done on the value that entrepreneurs bring themselves and the value that they create to society at large. And most of this shows society at large is a far bigger beneficiary. So the number that I have often heard is an entrepreneur who's really successful might keep 5% of the value that they create for the world. So if if you think through social media, if you like Twitter, if you like Facebook, yeah, there are individuals who got rich off of that, but a lot of people have this new outlet that they never had before that's essentially free to use and are getting value every single day from that, or from new vehicles, or from the cell phone, or from whatever. It's nice
and
when
there's this old saying, there's old story, which is probably apocryphal, that Ben Franklin was once asked what the use of some new invention was, and his answer was, "What is the use of a new baby?" And that captures a real important truth, which is you can never tell what these technologies are going to accomplish. The Romans had steam power. They understood that steam power existed, but they were unable to use it because they didn't have the steel necessary to withstand the pressures generated by steam power. When the Bessemer process came along and steel could be made with a higher quality that could withstand those kinds of pressures, now you make possible powerful steam engines. Those steam engines can generate energy that can transport people across the continent and take ships across great oceans. And nobody could have anticipated the ways that steam power or that the Bessemer process would have improved everybody's lives. And nobody could have anticipated the ways that the Model T, when it first rolled off the assembly line, everybody knew that was a transformative technology, but they had no clue how enormous that change would be. And it's the same thing. The same is true, like you said, of something like social media, which we tend to regard as a triviality. By no means is it a triviality. Look at how we've been able to follow news stories in real time from across the world with the Ukraine war, for example, on Twitter and Facebook and things like this. Just even if it were just the joy of seeing your photos of your grandkids, that would be enough. But we're talking about world-changing technologies.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point of the studies on how much they earned, right? Like, think about Gutenberg and the printing press, right? Certainly got rich in his lifetime, but people have enjoyed the fact that existed. I mean, that's meant long after he died, there was surplus value gained by the rest of society. So it's really nice when that attitude also lines up with the fact that it's doing well for the world. So
your reference to the printing press is perfect. It reminds me of, there's this famous passage in in Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, when he has this passage where the tyrannical cardinal points at the printing press, and then he points at the church and he says, "This will destroy that." And that passage was very inspirational more than a century later to Frank Lloyd Wright, who was America's great architect, who read that when he was a young man, and he was so moved by it that was one of the reasons he chose to become an architect. You can never know the weird ways that the future is going to be influenced by these new inventions and technologies. And so a culture of entrepreneurialism, or what Deirdre McCloskey has called the bourgeois virtues, it's the cultural and social and moral aspects of entrepreneurialism and the right to earn a living that are the most important for just that reason.